It came over. You're up to 40.
And here we go. Wow.
Hey, Barry.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
I'm great, Greg. Are you driving? Because if you are, stop.
He's driving, but I'm pushing buttons, Barry. He's good.
Yeah,
That's
That's not-
scary.
Again, I'm doing all the work.
So are you going to take care of the admissions?
Yeah, I've got it going on right now. You got 40, 45, 46 on.
Great.
45 participants says here.
Barry, did you want to give a little intro prior to
I
us
will.
getting started?
I will.
Okay.
Whenever we ready to go.
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, good evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. The coaching meeting we used to have was usually the regular season and involved like 300 or 400 people showing up at some location, and it lasted for about 3 or 4 hours. Luckily, we're not doing that anymore, and hopefully you have the opportunity to learn, hopefully you have the opportunity to learn what you need to know tonight about what's going on with the league, and more importantly, whatever questions you have and what's going to drive what we're trying to provide for you. I would say this, and I've said it before, that the coaches we have in this league are what makes this league the best league there is. And we thank you for your expertise. We defer to that expertise, but among the other things, we hold you to the standards of what FYSA holds us all to, and the ethical concerns we have regarding referees and not abusing referees. As I said before, if you're over the age of 30 and if you think you can't intimidate some 16 or 17-year-old or 15-year-old referee, I'd be surprised, but that's not the point. If you control yourself as to how the referees referee a game, then the parents will do that and everything will go a lot smoother. No one's ever coached a perfect game. No one's ever played a perfect game. No one's ever reffed a perfect game. And a referee is a person who takes a test, sits in a room, and gets 3/4 of the questions right, and then has to go out on the field and apply it to live action. And everyone expects them to be 100% perfect the first game, and then improve after that. So we know it's an impossible burden we put on the referees. We're all in this together. Anything we can do to help you, we will do. Just let us know. But above all, when you're dealing with the referees, when you're dealing with those in charge of the league and everything else, we only ask that you do with respect. We respect all of what you're doing, because we can't do anything without you people doing what you do. And we appreciate your contributions, and we're here to help you any way we can. Okay, and with that, turn it over to Jeff to handle what's next.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for coming. We actually have a really nice turnout, so that's terrific. Tonight's format, as Barry said, is a little bit different from some of the years past. And our goal here for you guys is to give you that opportunity to ask your questions. During the season, we would appreciate all you funneling any questions or requests directly through your club representatives. There's just too many teams involved and too many people for us to be able to personally answer phone calls and such. We can try and answer your emails if you want to use that, or use the website's help feature down at the bottom right, and we can get back to you on when we can. But this is your kind of the opportunity to ask us directly. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jeff Kersner. I'm the VP of competition. I'm usually the one that you will get the emails from. So at least you can kind of put a face with a name or an angry email. You'll know who's the one that's sending it. So tonight I'm try and keep it as short as possible. Just have a few things that I want to point out, let you know where information is, where you can get that, and then hopefully have enough time for you guys to ask any questions that you want, and we'll try and answer them. If it's something that we, don't have an immediate answer to, I'll definitely take some notes and get back to you and place something up on the website, especially if it has something to do with, everyone as opposed to individual. If you have specific questions about your team, if you can kind of hold those to the end, and any questions that you might have that you think, would be relevant to others, I would appreciate it if you kind of would hold off till then. I'm going to go ahead and share a screen, and I realize that, some of you may not have, desktop. I see that there's some people that are on the field. That's great that you could check in while you were, coaching and doing whatever else. But all the information that I'm going to be putting up on the screen is available on the website. And so it's just more of an idea that you can recognize, oh yeah, that's the document that he was talking about. So what I really want to do first is just kind of point out that the coach's manual is online for this updated 2022-2023 season. It has not been, it's not finalized at this point. We do have some changes that are going to be going into certain sections, and I have our disciplinary rules person, Becky McLaren. She's reviewing it at this point just to make sure that we have everything set. But I do want to just touch on a couple of areas so that you'll have that information. Not much has changed. One of the things that I did want to point out is, although we still have kind of a COVID-19 section in the site, it's just to kind of let you know that thankfully, now that the pandemic has come to hopefully an end, so have some of the special treatments that we had offered in the past. So basically, we're back to normal for the most part. And how that impacts you is that, games need to be played per the schedule. And the time to make those schedule changes is now, as opposed to later on. The more that you push games to the future, the more difficulty that you might have. As you can tell, that we've been fairly lucky so far as regards to weather, but now that the season is getting started for the older ages this coming weekend, and for the younger ages after Labor Day, it's in that prime hurricane zone and bad weather zone. So just be aware of that when you start to push games, that you could run out of dates. Couple of things that I want to point out, obviously the COVID section, but the internet website, all of you guys should be familiar with, our website. If you're new to the league, please take a moment to go through it. Review the coach's manual in detail, in depth. It should have all the information in it that you need. Whenever you do need to contact us about something, please always include your team code. I know it might not seem like much to you guys, but with so many codes, it's the only way that we can look up information quickly. And if you don't provide it, you'll be getting an email back from me that says, I need a team code. So, to save the time, just go ahead and do that up front. And that's basically where this section is. It talks about club and team identification issues. Please make sure to use that team code. There's information on what jerseys requirements there are. If there's any issues with that, you can check with your club representative. One of the big things that I do want to talk about is schedule changes. Over this past 10 days, after the schedules have been published, your club representatives have been going through and making modifications to your home games. They've not been changing the dates of those home games. Well, I mean, they may have been submitting changes that you've worked out with your opponent, but they've been going through to kind of consolidate the fields that you have available. Maybe there's some of you that can't do games in the morning, and so they're trying to work, games around your schedule. And obviously for referees, being as short as we've been with referees, they may be working on referee availability. And so during this past 10 days, your club reps have been going in and making a lot of changes to those games. And during this time, they get automatically approved in batches. Tonight at midnight will probably be the last opportunity for them to do that, to make those home game changes. So you'll still continue to see changes in your schedule as we move forward, at least certainly through tonight. And then as you come to agreements with your opponents on some game changes, you will obviously be able to take care of making those prior to those games. Be aware that game changes have to be done at least a full day prior to the game date. So if it's a Saturday game, you've got to have the game done before Thursday, or game change approved before Thursday midnight in order for that to work, because you need that full day of Friday. It has to be done before that. Games can be changed after the fact, but there needs to be a good reason, and it should be the exception rather than the rule. There are going to be some continued schedule changes as a result of some additional teams. We had a couple of teams pull out, but we actually have had more teams that have come in late. I do know that there is a couple of teams that are still coming in due to a lack of competition in the Dade League. I know of a couple of teams that are coming in late. So in those divisions that do change, you will see some changes to your schedule. And when that happens, we do try and send out an email to those teams that are affected. And why that is important is because it's very important that the information that you or your club rep have provided to us is accurate. So on the website, you can look under the schedules tab and under the teams declared by division or by club, and it'll have a list of all the teams in your division. It has a list of who the coaches are. If there's a little more icon to the far right, you can click on it and it will show additional coaches that have been declared in your club information. If you don't have a phone listed, that's going to be a problem when people are trying to contact you for game changes. So if you're a coach that's been added or a team manager that's been added to the team information, make sure that you provide a phone number and an email. If you're on the website, you can actually click on that specific person's name and send a direct email to them if you need to communicate with them. But please make sure you go through and have all the information that's needed for people to contact you. A lot of times I'll get an email or I'll get a phone call from a club rep and says, look, I can't reach a team from so-and-so club. My response typically is going to be, well, call every single coach that's affiliated with that club, and then call every single club representative from the organizational tab. And finally, till you get somebody that will find someone that can get back to you on a potential game change. So it's actually going to help you guys to avoid a lot of phone calls if you make sure that all the information is accurate. So just kind of keep an eye on that, and it'll make all of our lives a lot easier. We do have some openings for some teams. There is, let me check. We have an opening from a team that's withdrawn in the boys under 10 Division II. We have an opening in the under 11 Division II, under 14 Division III, under 18 Division I, and I just filled the under 19 Division I. I actually have a commitment from the under 14 Division III, but I think that we might be able to get an additional one there. So if you have a team that's been formed late, I realize sometimes that happens at this part of this season, have your club rep get in touch with me. I definitely can get teams in those divisions that are missing a team. I can get them in for just our standard fee. There's not a late fee for that. If on the other hand, you have a team that needs to come in late that I don't have an opening for, it's not that we can't do it, but there is a late fee of $500 on top of your $150 registration. At this point, all the teams are in their proper divisions. If you want to change divisions, it's $1,000 to change. And the reason is it's $500 to leave one division and $500 to go into the new division. And that's assuming that we can make it work. So your club reps have been bombarded with emails about this. We have given them every opportunity to declare late. So at this point, hopefully those schedules are fairly complete. The other thing I wanted to touch, I want to make sure you go through the detail about how to submit game changes. The key is that you need to be contacting your opponent. And by contacting, I don't mean relying upon the game change system on the website, the first thing you should be doing is either contacting them by phone or email to make sure you have an agreement, and the website should be used last. I get a lot of club reps that'll tell me, hey, I submitted a request for a game change. Nobody ever got back to me. Well, it's not the process that we want you guys to follow. We want to follow is go in, check to see what the availability is, and where they can potentially play. You need to do your homework to help out your opponent, just like you would like them to help you out. So if you need to move a game, you have a late tournament that popped up that you guys want to try and get to, go to the opponent's schedule, see when they're not playing, see when their availability is. If it happens to be their home game, help them out, see if there's a slot that will work within your time frame, and you would have a much better opportunity of getting them to be able to help you out. Go back through, and if you're the home team, we are using a new registration and rostering system that we've used the last 2 years, and just make sure that you, as the home team, print a minimum of 2 rosters to take with you. It's important that you get your rosters done in the time frame. And if the opponent hasn't entered the players on the game roster by the time that you've printed it out, as long as it's an official roster, then that opponent's going to have to either provide the most current roster, 2 copies of it, or they're going to have to manually fill in the roster. Again, all of this information is on the website. There actually is a specific video on game registration and rostering that we took that will take you through every single screen. It will take you through an example of putting players on the team and printing out your game rosters and making changes to those rosters. So, we have a YouTube channel with all of the different videos. This meeting will also be on the YouTube channel after we're done tonight. And the registration and rostering video is available via the link on our website. So on the website, under the forms and documents section, there's a link to the YouTube channel. There's a link to this coach's manual. There's a link to the game card rostering YouTube. And there actually is also a game card rostering PDF, which looks something like the screen that you see now, that takes you through step by step what you need to do to roster your players. It has screens with highlights on the screens about how to do it. So I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't done it before, to take a few moments and review both the PDF, and then there is the video that takes you through the PDF with screens in a live action, as opposed to just the screen prints themselves. Again, as the home team, make sure you keep your rosters. One of the biggest things that we see from coaches, if you get a player that gets a red card, is to make sure that you submit your rosters. It's the home team's responsibility to submit rosters when a spectator, a player, a coach gets ejected from a game. The system is very straightforward and very easy. Just fill out the information, upload your game rosters. You can do it with your phone. You can take the pictures. We don't use faxes anymore. It's very easy to upload your roster. Just make sure that you do it. The fines are fairly hefty. If you have a player on your team that got suspended and you don't submit the game card roster and the referee does, it's a $100 fine to you. If you are the home team and you've got somebody that's serving a suspension, it's also important for you to submit those rosters, even if it's not your player. Again, all the information on red cards, suspensions, roster submission are in the coach's manual. The one last thing that I did want to touch base on is I get a lot of questions about who's eligible. Can I put a certain player on my team? I've got an under 15 team playing in the high school division. Is it okay if I add additional players that are older, because it's a 2006 team as opposed to 2014? Basically, the way that the league operates is that we look at the age of the division. So if you're playing in a high school division, that division is an under 19 division. If you happen to have an under 16 team that's using the under 16 code, that's fine. You can put players that are under 19 on that team on the South Florida United roster, and they would be considered primary to that team. In other words, we don't really look at the team code. It's kind of the one time we don't really look at the team code as far as eligibility. It's more the age of the players and the age of the division. So again, that should be fairly straightforward, but if you have questions, shoot me specific questions on that. With that, that's really all of the detail that I wanted to cover. I wanted to leave as much time as possible for you guys to ask questions and then be able to go through and maybe it will help some others as well. If you have a question, you can either unmute yourself or you can use the Zoom raise your hand feature, and I'll be happy to try and answer that.
Jeff, it's Christine.
Hi, Christine. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm on my phone, so I'm not really seeing very much.
You're lucky.
I did ask a question about referee fees. Are they staying the same? I know you've said they're probably in the manual. I just can't see it.
The referee fees currently are the same. However, there was a proposal that was brought at the AGM that didn't happen by Mike Weber as the VP of referees to increase those fees. Because we didn't have a quorum at the AGM, it wasn't able to be considered. We still need to hold that AGM meeting, which we'll do at our next meeting date. And I can't remember if I think it's September. And at that point, it's possible that the fees could be increased because that's when we typically would do the referee fee increase. But as it is right now, for any games that are occurring this weekend until an AGM is held, it will be the fees that are in the coach's manual.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions? We still have quite a few people on.
Yeah, there's 63 on and no.
Any hands up?
I got a quick question.
Question in the chat.
Okay, I think, is it Hunter?
Yes, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Hunter, how can we help you?
I'm new to the league this year. I'm coaching U9 girls. If you had already gone over this, I really do apologize. Just basic, generic rules, by obviously, younger girls have different rules than olders. Is everything on the website underneath the documents tab or?
Yeah, Hunter, it's a very good question, especially for the younger ages. When you're playing in small-sided games, we do have special rules that are unique to South Florida United. We have a goal-to-goal rule and others. And in the under 9s and 10s, we have the build out and that information that matches what FYSA had recommended. It is on the coach's manual under the documents tab. You could review it there, and it is kind of important that you take a look at that, because especially your parents too, because at that age, under 9 girls, the parents know so much more than we do. So yeah, I would recommend that you review that, especially the goal-to-goal rule, which is unique to our league.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Jeff, great question from a manager. How does a manager get added to the coaching website?
Absolutely. Team managers can be added to the coaches site by the club representatives. There's a spot for 3 different coaches. And I would recommend that you put, if you have 3 coaches, then unfortunately that's the limit there. But if you have a team manager, have them add the team manager as one of the coaches, and then they will get the notifications and emails just like the rest of the coaches would. In addition, you need to be one of the 3 email addresses that's in the coaching information for that team in order to be able to report scores using the QR code that prints out on the game rosters themselves. So having an account with South Florida United, you would need to log into the system, create a new account if you don't have one already, and you can actually have your club representative give you the authorization that you need as a coach. But the key is that they need to update the team information to add your name and email address as one of the 3 coaches. If that's not possible, you may want to just see if maybe they can keep the coach's name and then use your email address if, as a team manager, you would like to be able to get those email notifications. Does that answer the question?
To me, it did.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It was a chat question. Okay, great.
Yeah, it was a chat question, and the answer was yes. Thank you.
Okie doke, great.
Jeff, me
Uh-huh.
again, Christine, sorry.
Hey, Christine.
If the answer is read the manual, then just tell me that.
That's always
are
my
w-
first answer.
No, I know it is, and I'm sorry because I haven't read it. Are we back to using field marshals? I know we had a break from doing that because of COVID, but are we back to doing that as
We
mandatory?
actually didn't have a break as a result of COVID. We were just
Oh, well, we did,
less
sorry, because we didn't allow spectators on our fields. That was what
right.
it
We were
was, yeah.
less inclined to enforce a lot of those types of things. But yeah, field marshals at games are required. They shouldn't
Okay.
be a parent that's screaming, obviously, on behalf of their kid, or
Right.
it can't be one of the referees. And it's really more of that calming influence. And there is some information about that as well in the manual.
So read
but-
the manual, Christine, right?
No, not really, because like you said, it was something that there's a lot of things that were kind of left unenforced as a result of COVID, and so many things that people we're just trying to get kids on the field and referees to show up and get games going so that, people had something to do, so to speak. But at this point, everything should be kind of more back to normal as it was, several years ago, and field marshals would be one of those that we definitely need. And if you do have a field marshal that's there, please don't try and get their name added to the roster after the fact. Please, put their name in and get it to the referee before they have to do their job, so that it's not a bone of contention at the end of the game when the field marshal's complaining about a call and then trying to get his name on the roster.
Understood. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
The next question, is there any time limitation on when they have to play the game? And I'm assuming that's for fall season.
For fall season, December 31st is the last play date. There is information in the coach's manual on that. Sometimes, but do not rely on this, but sometimes at the end of December 31st, if there are games that couldn't have been played, unfortunately, we get hit with 3 hurricanes on play days, and then the high school season kicks in, and we have an older age group that you have 2 teams that maybe aren't playing in the spring, and they want to get those games in. In those extremely rare circumstances, we can potentially allow some games to be pushed into the new year. But again, do not use that as we'll just play next year kind of a situation. Look at December 31st as the kind of the end play date. All games that are unplayed as December 31st are going to be a dual forfeit. If they don't get played, there's potential fines as well, depending upon the reason why the game didn't get played according to schedule. You as clubs do get the opportunity to make some changes and push games. So if you've chosen to do that, you again are at risk of not getting those games in. So I would suggest you try and do that. What we did in terms of scheduling for the older kids, the 15s and up, is that we scheduled starting this weekend through, in most cases, the first week in November, because that's when high school really gets underway. Excuse me. In some of the divisions where there were a lot of teams and we had more games, those games went to that second week in November. We realized that might be a problem for some of you with a lot of kids that are playing high school sports. So take a look at your schedule. You can double up. You can play 2 games in a weekend. You can play 2 games on the same day. You can't have players play for 2 different teams, but you can play 2 games on the same day. I know that sometimes teams on the West Coast will do that. They'll come over and they'll try and work out so they can make one trip. They'll play a game in the morning and then play a game in the afternoon to cut down on their travel costs and such. So that's definitely something that is allowable. For the younger kids, the first scheduled game was the weekend after Labor Day. I think it was the 10th. And the last scheduled game, I believe, was the 17th of December. But again, you're free to reschedule and play those games all the way up until the end of the year. I see a question from Matthew about the PBSL schedules being finalized tonight. I don't know about the PBSL schedules. That's not something that we have any interaction with. So I couldn't tell you if there's going to be any conflicts for teams that might be participating in both. I do know that that there were some teams from the Miami-Dade League that are now kind of searching for a place to play, as I mentioned earlier. And if we can accommodate them, we certainly will try. Any other questions out there?
Yes, I got a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Lewis, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you? Just to make sure, you just mentioned that a team can play 2 games in one day,
That is correct.
but a player can now play 2 games in 2 different teams, correct?
Thank you.
Good. So I noticed that we added on a new club, Lee County Strikers.
Actually, they've been a club for a long time. They just, for the first time in a while, they have some teams.
Oh no, well, I've never seen them on SFU is what I mean. I don't know how long they've existed, but I haven't seen them in the last couple of years at
Sure.
least. Oh, okay. So has there ever been any talk when you add on these teams that are very far about some kind of neutral site?
The way that we have done it is that when Lee County and Cape Coral were added to the league, wow, it's been, I don't want to date myself, but it's been quite some time. There was for the Division 1, they traveled. For Division 2 and 3, teams could opt to have away games played in Region A. We discourage it because Lee County specifically and Cape Coral as well, they have some of the best fields that you will play at. And in addition, they are super hosts. A lot of times they'll have lots of things for you. I mean, from refreshments and things, and they're just really, really great. Grateful to be able to participate in our league because they're traveling everywhere. We do allow you to play at a neutral field if that is something that can be worked out. But for the Division 1 teams, if you are the away team and you were going to Lee County, that's certainly something to be expected. We tried to limit the distance. We had hoped that we would have, obviously, the more teams that we would have in a division we have had in the past. We've had kind of North and South divisions, and most of the time they're kind of collapsed into that North division. But if you are able to work something out with them, and they're usually very accommodating for that, if you're able to work something out with them to play at a neutral site, more power to you. That's just something that you would need to work out with them.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet, Lisa.
Hi, this is Raquel Montoya. I'm new to the league this year, and
Hey,
I just
Raquel. Good.
Hi, how
Glad
are
to
you?
have you.
I just had a question regarding the starting of game time. So if you're about like 2 hours away, for example, from one location, in the game states it's 9 a.m. Do we contact the coach and say it, or do we have to stay over the night before? How does it work time wise?
That's a good question. We actually, if you're traveling between regions, in other words, let's say in talking what Lisa had a little while back, if you're traveling between region A and region C, we actually have a league rule that says no game can start before 11. But that's if you're going between region C and region A. Unfortunately, region A is a huge region for, you could be going from Port St. Lucie down to South Dade and Homestead. And yeah, a 9 a.m. game would be very, very difficult. Most clubs are going to be very generous in trying to help reschedule that. And you would just need to reach out to your opponent, because a lot of times you may not realize what a specific code means. You may not realize that, PBSL is in the northern part of region A, and SHA is actually in the southern part of Miami. So, what happens is that when we generate schedules, we try and fill the earliest slots, which are 9 a.m. slots, and that's how they get placed. And then if it happens to be that you have one of those long travel distances, then definitely reach out to them and see. We try and hope that you wouldn't have to spend the night at a hotel and go to that additional expense, or get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to try and get your kids there. And again, if they're in one of the further parts of the region, they're going to be operating under very similar types of circumstances, when they have to go on the road. So I'm sure that they will try and help you out as best they can, with everybody understanding that, the later in the day, the more chances are of those thunderstorms and the more difficulty it might be in terms of getting referees. But if you have a long commute, don't necessarily think that you need to try and, fill up a hotel. See if you can't reach out to the coach and say, hey, look, is there any way we can, move the game a little bit, give me a couple hours and work that out. Schedules aren't fixed, and that's one of the important things that you need to be aware of. Do not print out these schedules tonight, hand them to your parents and say, here's where it is, because they will change. They can change, like I said, up to a day before the actual game day.
Is there a place where we can see where the regions are listed, their boundaries, et cetera?
I believe that on the in the main menu of the website, you can do and get the club information. And I know it's also available on the FYSA site. The other thing that you can do is if you're going to be on the road, if you click on the field code in the game itself, it will show you where that field is. And so then you can kind of get an idea of how far it's going to be, obviously. So I would go through your games, click on all those field codes, see where they're located. If it happens to be that, this is going to be a 2-hour commute or something like that, then definitely reach out to them and see if you can get something done.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Don't be shy. Joe, do we have any other questions in the chat?
No, it is quiet right now, but I think Lewis.
Yeah, this is Luis. Yes. I
Hi,
have a
Louis.
question because I saw the other day on the schedule, the website, that we got a game against a team that is, I think that is equipped for the league. And now I have a code that I cannot find on the.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Louis. If you see a code that starts with SFU,
yeah,
that is a holding code. We did send that information out to your club reps, but they may not have gotten back and let you know that. Any SFU team is a holding spot for, hopefully, as I mentioned, we have those spots in, I think it's 4 divisions right now, the 10 boys, 11 boys, 14 and 18. We leave those games in the schedule so that you're aware that they might get filled with a team. And like I said, we had one that got filled today. So that under 19 team has already been filled. If you see an SFU code, you are not supposed to show up. It should be a TBA field, which means that there's not a field that actually exists. So you can schedule a different game in that spot. And then when we actually do get, a team that goes there, it should be able to fix that for you. So we don't delete those games out of the system because we'd like to try and find, somebody else to fill that spot. We will eventually do that as we get a little bit further into the season, but you'll see over the next week or two, especially, even before the start of the younger kids schedule after Labor Day, we probably will get additional teams. So at this point, if you see the SFU team code, you can choose to fill it with a different game if you can get a game moved in, or you can just ignore it. And then we will be continuing to move those games later on in the season in case that we are able to get a replacement team. So thank you very much for that question, Louis. That's a really good one. Pay no attention, so to speak, of the SFU games in your schedule at this point.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Yes.
Yes, this is Moises Godoy from Florida United. We're new in the league.
Yes.
Question, can our team do a double hitter one day just because sometimes we have, we're back up on the schedule and we have to play home and away. We'd rather do one home and away in one location and not to have to travel. Is that possible?
Yes, Moises, you might not have heard when we did talk about that a little while ago, but it's done quite a bit. The West Coast teams do it a lot as well.
Okay.
If you want to play more than one game in a day, that's fine. Just understand that your players can only play 2 games in a day for one specific South Florida United team. So if you're if you're moving players back and forth between teams, they can only play for one team, but they can play 2 games.
Okay, perfect. That was
You
my
bet.
question. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Who's next? I still see 57 people in the room, so somebody has questions. Although Christine's in there 3 times for some reason.
She keeps
She
adding.
really likes this
You
meeting,
know,
I guess.
I'm so sorry, but you know what I'm like? I remind everybody all the time, the meeting's coming up, the meeting's coming up. And then I realize that there's not many people on. So I ended up sending them my link. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. That's exactly what I figured.
I did it on my phone, so I was kind of being quick about it. I apologize.
No, that's great.
There is only one Christine Thomas.
Caesar has a question. I'm going to read it verbatim.
Okay.
For the boys 2009 U14 Division 3, there are 2 team codes, a 2006 team and a girls team, which is Albion. I think I know the answer, but you can go ahead.
The 2006 team, I believe, is a bad team code. It is a proper aged team. And it may have been that it was fixed in one side and not the other. I'll take a look at that, but I do know that there was a typo in the team code that was initially put in. And I think that they sent me an email to fix it, but unfortunately with so many emails to try and fix some of these, it might have been something that I missed. As far as the ALB 2009 FC, that is a girls team and they are playing in the boys division. We have had that a number of times. We actually encourage it. And one year we had, I believe it was in the under 14s, we had a girls team got all the way to the semifinals. So that is a correct team code for the girls. And I will thank you for bringing that up, Caesar. I will take a look at the other code, but I'm 90% sure that it's an accurate team, just an improper code. Were there any other chat questions in there, Joe?
No,
we're good.
Clear as of now.
Okay, guys, who's got questions?
Okay, one more question regarding
Okay, no problem. Go right ahead.
game changes. I'm sure I can read it up, but someone had mentioned the other day to me about a form. Do we have to fill out a form when we make game changes? Is it just between us and the coach? How exactly does that work?
The information on kind of the process is in the coach's manual. How you choose to make your contacts, or that might be something that your club wants you to do. I don't know. As far as the league is concerned, only someone that has club rep authorization and that or alternate club rep authorization is able to submit the game changes request. What happens is that you would, as a coach, contact your opponent and say, hey, I got a problem with a game on this specific date. Is there any way we can move it to a different date? I looked in your schedule. You have this date, this date, this date open. And I know that, your fields are wide open that day. Is it something we can do? Now, they might say, yeah, absolutely. Let's go for Christmas Day, just for lack of a better day. And we'll do it in the morning so that, right after they open their presents. That's fine. Now that you've got that agreement, you say, okay, they might say to you, well, I just got to check with my referee assigner and make sure it's okay. Fine. Go ahead and put the information in the system. At that point, what that means to you as a coach is you need to contact your club rep. They will go on the South Florida United website and they will put in what's called a game change request. It's a very simple request. They put in the game number and what's changing. The date, basically, maybe the time, maybe the field, if it's not going to be at the same field. And then they will submit that change. That goes to the club rep for the opponent, and they'll get an email. And then all they do is they'll click on that to either accept or decline the change. If they accept the change online, then the game will be immediately updated in your schedule online, and everything is good to go. So there, maybe the form that they were talking about is the online form, but again, that would be something that's limited to your club representative or their alternate club representative. The key thing for you as a coach is just to get all the details and then let your club rep know so that they can implement it online. It's not something that you need to necessarily inform the league about. The only time the league gets involved in a game change is if something has happened after the fact and the game didn't get played, and then it needs to be changed, because once the game date goes by, then the club reps can't submit game changes for that specific game.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh. I see a message from Shannon. Are there any playoffs after the league or league tournament, or is it just the round robin games? Yes, we are going to be doing the same playoff format as we did last year. There will be playoffs between the fall season and the spring season. So for the teams that finished in the top of, and it will change depending upon the number of teams in each of the divisions. It could be either top 2 teams, top team, top 4 teams from the fall will play against the top 4 teams from the spring in a playoff in May. This past year, we were not able to secure any fields locally for a variety of reasons, and we ended up going over to Cape Coral to play. It was lovely. We loved it. I know there were a couple of complaints because of the distance, but hopefully we'll be able to find some fields this year that are a little bit more centrally located to all the participants. In fact, we're already reaching out on that now to try and secure those. But yes, there will be playoffs for the under 12 and up. We do not have playoffs for 9s, 10s, and 11s, just for the under 12s up. Anybody else has questions? Still have a good 50 people in the room, so I know there's people that might have a question. Don't be shy. Unmute yourself.
There's no more questions in the queue.
Thanks, Joe.
One more question, please.
Yes, Louis.
When it's a red card on a player
Uh-huh.
For the visiting team,
Uh-huh.
is the home team the one that send the reports, or also the visiting team have to send that report?
Louis, the home team is the one responsible for submitting reports because the home team's the one that's bringing the rosters. When we changed them a couple of years ago, in the past, it used to be that, everybody would bring their own roster, but now that we've gone to game specific rosters,
Right.
the home team is the one that's responsible for printing out the 2 rosters and bringing them. So as a home team, if anybody gets dismissed from the field, whether that's a player, whether that's a parent, whether that's a spectator, the home team must submit the game report. And that's done online. Again, the information on how to do that is in the coach's manual and then and in a couple of the different videos that are in the YouTube channel for the league as well. Just make sure that you do that because those are where the fines can add up for not doing that. But yeah, the home team would be responsible for submitting it. The home team is also responsible for submitting the game report when someone's serving a suspension. Now, how do you know that someone's serving a suspension? Well, typically what's going to happen is that when you print out that roster as a home team, those people that are serving suspensions, they're going to have been marked out on the game roster on the online version. So it will actually print out with an X and a line through the player's name for which they're supposed to go and get the referee to sign off of it. When they do that, you'll see it on the game roster. So anytime you see an X and a line through it with the referee signature, then you as a home team would also need to submit it. My suggestion is that if you are a coach that's got a player that's actually serving, and this is if you are a coach that's serving, or if you're a player you have a player that's serving, or even a spectator, if you're happen to be the visiting team, you can go ahead and print out a roster and just make sure that the referee initials it and then send in that service roster just to make sure that in case the home team doesn't, that you're covered. If you follow the rules and if you mark your players out that are serving suspensions in the online system and and you're the visitor and the home team doesn't submit your service report, you're covered because we can go into the system and see that you marked that player out serving a suspension. So we know that at the time you got to the field, that player was marked out on the game roster. So it's very important that you follow those rules when you're making your game rosters, because that will protect you in the event that the home team forgets and doesn't submit a game roster when you've got a player that's serving. So there's a couple of checks and balances is basically what I'm getting at. But the best thing forward is if, you happen to have a player that's serving, or certainly if anybody gets a red card, that as the home team, you do submit those rosters. Chris, do you have a question?
I had a question related to the timing of printing those final rosters.
Yes, sir.
As long as it's within the 24 hours and you print it, even if the other team's is blank, you're cool?
Yes. Typically what's going to happen in that regard is you're going to get to the field and the referee's going to go, where's the other team's players? Since you can make changes to your game roster up until the kickoff of the game, or at least the time of the kickoff of the game, you can make those changes manually on the roster that's already been printed, as long as as long as the players that are participating are the ones that are in the online roster, you're good. Typically, if you happen to be one of those teams that likes to put in your players at the very last second, it might behoove you to also bring two official rosters when you get to the game, just in case, so that you don't have to go in and manually write them. Because if you're one of those teams and you're the visitor and you get there and the home team has already printed it out and your players aren't there, then you have to manually write in every one of your players, all that information from both of those rosters to give it to the referee. So, or bring those rosters with you. So again, it's the best way that we found that could still give a lot of the clubs the flexibility that they wanted to make roster changes late prior to the game, but also not have everybody printing out hundreds of sheets of paper for rosters. But yeah, you're good as long as it says official, because when you print it out within the proper time frame, it'll say official. If it doesn't say official, then it's not an official roster, and that would mean that you printed it out more than 24 hours before the game.
Gotcha. Okay. So
thanks, Chris.
Pretty much you as long as you're within it, you print it. I don't know. I just had days where I'm waiting around. It seems like at the end, like for the other team, and keep checking.
If you want to print it out, if you want to print it out 23 hours and 59 minutes beforehand, hey, go for it. And
it's up
for
to
me,
them.
but
And if they make their change late, they should go ahead and print it.
Exactly. And it's fine.
Gotcha.
You don't have to use your roster just because you're the home team. If they print it out, late and it has all the information in it, just check yours. It should be fine. Because again, it's all coming from the same source. They're not able to change your roster. You're not able to change their roster. So yeah, if they bring the two rosters and they're good to go, no problem. You can use theirs and keep yours for yourself.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, Anderson.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
First year and a coach on the league. I actually am coaching a white team.
Okay.
And, actually, I have a question. Me and the manager for the team has started to register some of the games.
Okay.
And one of the things I've noticed is some of the teams that are actually going against us are red teams and black teams. Now, under our team, you start in white, then you go red and black. So I'm assuming throughout the league, most of them are that way, meaning white, you're beginning kind of players. You're red.
You know what assume means, right, Anderson?
I'm sorry?
You know what assume means, right?
I know what assume means. Yes, 100%.
We don't typically assume. I can't say that that's accurate. Every club treats players and teams differently. There might be some truth to what you say, but what we can rely upon as a league is that we give the DOCs and the clubs complete discretion on where they feel that their teams are best suited to participate.
Okay.
And so you may find that a white or a red or whatever doesn't really coincide with the level that you're participating against. I really wouldn't worry too much about the colors or what division they're in. They've all been kind of declared based upon what, coaches and clubs feel is the best for their players' development. Winning a 50-cent medal is not really what we're here for. It's to try and obviously develop the kids to have a love for the sport and continue to play as they grow older and into high school and in some cases even at the highest levels, which we've been fortunate.
100%, Jeff. And that's actually my concern. The reason for bringing that, it was just to try to understand how the league qualifies a certain team to play, not about a team winning, but to have a stronger team goes towards such a weak team that the kids just get destroyed and they will lose the love of the game. Because if every game they go play, they're playing against a team that is substantially superior to them, then they will feel like they're not progressing or something is wrong. That's all the question was for.
Totally understand. I mean, in certain circumstances, there might be, a smattering of some teams that are either older or more experienced or better talented. Again, some of this is just going to be a nature of, especially in the youngest age groups, when you don't really know, you're going to run into some discrepancies in terms of talent. And there might be some blowouts here and there. We actually, last year, we had some of the closest games we've ever had, obviously in our playoffs. And there weren't a lot, because we do kind of look at statistics and such. There weren't a lot of blowouts last year. So the coaches have been doing something right, and we can hope that they're continuing to do that. There are, especially with the ability to kind of guest play and move players around in our rostering system, if you find that you have a team that's clearly out of their league in a specific division, not through anyone's fault necessarily, but you certainly have the opportunity to bring in some players as long as they're, age appropriate and such. If you have an under 9 team that's playing in an under 10 division because you thought that they were super strong as an under 9 and they just are physically not able to compete, you can definitely add some under 10s from your club into the games here and there. And you can look at the results to kind of see. And as you get through the season, you might face up against a couple of these teams in tournaments and you'll get an idea, but you never really know. You can't really rely on rankings through Got Sport or anything like that, because again, you might run into a team that doesn't have the money to participate in tournaments, and yet they are fantastic and will blow you out of the water, and you've never even heard of this team before. So there's a lot of variables. I wouldn't worry too much about the reds and the whites, but kind of again, worry about what you can control in that regard. And if it turns out that you're in a situation where it's 15-0 and 14-0 and 30-0, those types of things where you're clearly outclassed, then certainly as a league, we'll do what we can to maybe try and make something happen that would help. But I think
it's great. You explained, you put it perfect. I just needed to understand, and that was awesome. It was great. Thank you.
You bet.
I think different clubs have, a way of labeling their top teams and their bottom teams. So I think it's very difficult to try to,
It would.
I don't think you can always work out, is a black team a top or is a black team a bottom?
Exactly.
So I think I don't think you can really, determine that, because different clubs have
and
different
even
ways
if
of
it
doing
is that
things.
way, Christine, we both know that different clubs are going to have different strength levels, and just by reputation, you might have the third best team at one club that's much better than the top team at another, just by who happens to be there or such. So you really can't know. And like I said, we've been fortunate to have really good competition, and hopefully that continues this year.
Yeah.
Who else? As I said, don't be shy. There's still 40 of you there. That means there's some questions.
I just want to say that I've been in the league, I guess, 24 years.
Yes, Louis.
I love this format.
I
Fall
appreciate
season
that.
and spring season, the best.
Appreciate that. We did that send out surveys, and that was pretty much the consensus. So we try and do what you guys like, and that's why we changed it to begin with, and we'll continue as long as it works. We had hoped that as some of these other leagues that have pulled some of the competition away, the grass is always greener complex. It seems that a lot of those teams are coming back, and the more teams we have, obviously, the better types of competition and the more regionalized types of competition that we can create. I feel bad when we have divisions where 90% of the teams are from let's say Port St. Lucie and two teams are from South Miami, and there's going to be some significant travel as opposed to when we have maybe, several more teams from the area that could regionalize it more. We did do in a couple of cases, even though it might be a single division with, a good number of teams, we would actually behind the scenes when we did the scheduling, we tried to match up as much as possible the teams that were more local, and then use crossover games for the teams that were going to be traveling further. So whenever possible, we try and help you guys out, but unfortunately it's a function of who's actually declared and who's actually playing. But thanks for the comment, Lewis. Anybody else? Believe it or not, we've been stuck here for an hour with you guys.
We're down to 37, so it might be
Anybody
the
have
end of
any
the day.
specific questions they want to ask about a team, their team, or something like that? I know that in the initial part, I said, kind of keep it generic to the league, but if you guys, want to stick around and ask me specific questions about your club or team, I'm happy to answer those as well. Last chance, guys.
I have a newbie question.
Ah, there we go. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. How can I help
Thank
you?
you. Thank you for doing this. I've reviewed the manual, so I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but this is my first year being a team manager.
Okay.
Can you tell me I think I know what I need to have when I go to my first game, but what am I supposed to bring to the refs? You guys are talking about a game roster that's printed within 24 hours of the game, correct?
Sure.
And then
Uh-huh.
obviously our player passes.
Correct. And
What else?
referee fees.
And referee fees. And that's it?
If you're the home team, you have to bring the rosters. If you're the visiting team, technically you're not required to bring the rosters. You certainly can bring a roster for yourself.
Okay.
And some referees might say, no, I only signed 2 rosters, and they might tell you, no, you're the visitor, go away. Others would be more than happy to fill out your roster if you want them to for your own record keeping. But the roster is only required to be brought, or 2 rosters, if you will, as the home team. And you can bring 3 if you like, but again, a referee is only required as far as the league is concerned to have those 2. So 24 hours prior to the game, or actually less than 24 hours prior to the game, if you print out your roster into the PDF, you'll see that it has a little green watermark on it that says it's an official roster. If you print it out more than 24 hours, it's going to say it's an unofficial roster, and then that doesn't really count. So sometime between game time and 24 hours before the game, print out the roster as the home team. You'll need your player passes and your coaches passes. Anybody that's going to be on the technical side of the field will need a pass, and it needs to be an FYSA pass, and it needs to be for your specific club. If you're a team that plays both US club as well as FYSA, you need to have your FYSA passes, and then your referee fees. And as long as you have that, you're good to go. If you are the home team, you are responsible for a field marshal, as Christine brought up, and that field marshal needs to sign the roster prior to handing it to the referee. If you have players or coaches or spectators that are serving suspensions, make sure that you mark that on the roster before you hand it to the referee, and ask them to initial next to that player that's already marked out from the online roster. If you're the visiting team, then you're going to need to go up to the referee or the home team and make sure that the roster that they printed out shows that you have a player that's serving a suspension. And it's kind of the same thing. If you're the visiting team, you may want to bring a copy of the roster if you've got a player or coach that's serving a suspension, just in case you want to submit that to make sure that the coach gets or the player gets credit as soon as possible. And we're pretty good. For those of you that are new, there is an online suspension reporting process. When you print out a game roster, if you have a player that's not been cleared of a suspension, you're going to see that they're going to show up in red, meaning he better have served his suspension, because if they participate with an open suspension, it's fairly significant penalties. So just make sure that that's all taken care of or that they're marked out. We also have a report that goes out to club reps. I don't know if it goes to the team managers as well, but it does go to the club reps that will list players that are on a game roster that have an open suspension that are not marked out. So it's kind of a lot of different things to help you avoid getting yourself in trouble by playing a player that's got an open suspension. But the suspension list is open and you can search it at any time. If you're a new coach, but you've got players that you didn't bring up from the year before, it's very important that you go online to our suspension list and make sure that none of the players on your team have an open suspension from when they were with somebody else. So if you've got a player that came over from another club that's now on your team, just do a search for that player's name. You can search by their name, their pass number, their previous team. It's a very comprehensive search just to make sure you cover yourself from a player that might have an open suspension. Because, you know, when you ask them, hey, do you have an open suspension? They're going to say, no, I don't have an open suspension, but don't trust them. Trust the league's link. And if it happens to be that they've served it, then we'll get it taken care of. But definitely do that as a new coach.
Thank you so much.
Down to 25. Who else is out there that has a question?
May I add something, Jeff?
Mr. Quito, no, we're not having dinner tonight.
No, here's the simple. Please bring change. Referees do not have change.
Yes, if you don't bring change, then you just tipped the referee because they're not required to give you change.
They're not. So if you don't bring the exact amount, then referees have no change for you.
But they would appreciate $100 bills.
Yes, they will.
I guess one last thing. This is the first time I've actually attended a coaches meeting. So I've got my club rep hat on here.
Okay.
So with game changes, I guess each club has their own rules as to the deadline for game changes. Like I know that some clubs have to book their fields like 2 weeks in advance, for
That's
example.
a very good point, Christine. Yes,
Yeah.
Some clubs do. I know that Coral Gables, which I am with, they basically say, hey, look, you know, once the games are in the system and they've been accepted by the referees, the game can't change. Or if the game does change at that point, then you have to pay referee fees. So
Right. So that was my point. Every club's got different kind of
every
rules
club
about
does
that.
that. Yeah. As far as the league is concerned, there are no game changes. That's if you have a game that you need to get changed, that's up to you and your opponent. And whatever you have to work out to get them to accept it, it may cost you money, it may cost you home field advantage. But as it exists at this point, unless it's something that we knew about in advance as a league. So for example, Christine has a problem with Weston during their tournament. And if I inadvertently scheduled a game on their fields during the tournament because I missed it, then in that circumstance, we would work with the clubs to say, hey, yeah, this was something that the league screwed up early on and we need to get the game changed. Or one of the other things that the league will get involved in, let's say that I know that the 8th graders have a trip to Washington. That a lot of them might not know about in advance. And all of a sudden that might conflict with something. Well, we don't want to be a league that says that kids can't get the educational benefit of traveling to Washington. So we will, if a significant portion of the team, if it's one player, we're not going to make a change. But if a significant portion of the team is going to Washington for an educational function, and this is something that we would, you know, definitely want to have documented, then we will step in and assist in getting a game changed. We won't do it for anything other than educational endeavors, or we also will do it. It's more of an appropriate in the spring, but we'll also do it for cup games, state cup and President's Cup. We'll do that.
Okay. So, you know, if someone sort of says, well, I'm telling you 48 hours in advance, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you know, my schedule is finalized on this day, then you'll back us up with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
That's it's in boldface in the coach's manual in a lot of different places.
So Christine, go to the coach's manual.
No, I didn't say that. I meant it, but yeah.
Christine, have your coaches go to the coach's manual because your
Even
name's
better,
up here
yes.
like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I know. I'm not quite sure how many of our coaches are on here. I'm
I'd
sorry.
rather have them there as Christine multiple times. That's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, of the 20 stragglers, who has a question? Chico, nothing from you?
How many times have I been through this? No, thank you though. I always learn something new though.
Are you in bed? That looks
Yes,
like a
I am.
pillow. Oh my God,
I'm
I'm so
retired.
jealous.
Chico, one more time, you get to teach this. Come on.
That's right. We will drag you up here.
He bought Jeff's headphones. Look at that.
No, that's because his wife doesn't want to listen to this meeting. She knows how boring it is, right?
No, she knows how boring Chico is too. It's not important right now.
Hey.
Jeff, that looks like you're down to 20 and there's no message.
And it's mostly club reps. So yeah, I want to thank all you guys that stuck around to the
Very much
bitter
so.
end. And if you have anything else further, just shoot me an email. We'll be happy to take care of it.
Okay, guys, ladies.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
All
you
in,
as
all
always.
done.
Thank you, everyone. Good seeing